So, thanks for sending this video to the recommendation links. This is, check in the description, you're going to see another video. These are domestic breakdowns. And I literally read this before it even happened, and everything that I was saying in my mind was going to happen happened in this video. All right, you start off with an abuser and a victim. They are lodging in a motel, hotel environment. Many abusers prefer lodging because they believe it is a more private environment, and because 9 out of 10 times they are trying to prostitute the victim. Now, this was this could have been just a smooth and clear scenario. The abuser could have just left the premises as being asked and maybe went somewhere else. However, the abuser was under the influence. The abuser was not only under the influence, but the abuser chose, oh my eyes, sorry. Gotta put my glasses on. The abuser chose to keep it going by fabricating, doing manipulation tactics, basically. They tend to fabricate what didn't happen. Starting off by saying, no, there wasn't no altercation. There wasn't nothing. It's just me and my lady. Red flag. Red flag, because why would the staff call the police and tell a lie that y'all were in a physical altercation? Why would they do that? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, if you go into a public establishment, it doesn't matter if it's a hotel, motel, any public establishment where other people are there and they can see you, they can observe, they can hear you, and you get into a domestic violence situation, anyone who bears witness to it, they have the right to call in law enforcement to interject, intervene, and dissect this problem, whether the abuser or the victim likes it or not. Sometimes victims are so afraid that they wish no one would call no help because they know it will intensify. This is a primary example. Towards the end, you will see the woman. Well, first of all, my first sign that she was horribly afraid was when the officer told her, "You're going to come with me. I need to talk to you." And on her way walking out the door, she said, "Don't worry. Everything's all right." Basically, she was letting her abuser know, "I'm not going to tell them what you did. I refuse to tell them what you did because I know if I do, it's going to be worse." That's basically what she said in a nutshell. She didn't say it verbatim, but that's what that meant when she paused and told her abuser, "Don't worry, everything's okay," because she did not want to get the repercussion. If you listen to my last video, I said what happens in domestic violence situations, especially when it's relationship based, whether they're in love or not, love, lust, or someone's just being a narcissistic person, dragging someone along in life for the fun of it. That's what happens. You get the abuser is going to lie and say, no, they're going to try to desensitize the situation as soon as anyone interjects. No, that's not what was going on. No. You want to know why? Because number one, they don't want to get in trouble. And number two, they were on a roll. They don't want you interfering with what they were doing. They want you out of the picture so they can hurry up and get back to what they were doing. And that is extremely dangerous for the victim, because if there is a minimal interjection, and what I'm saying is if someone calls police onto the scene to interfere and help the situation, and then the abuser doesn't get apprehended, Once the police leave, it's going to accelerate. It is going to get way worse. It's going to intensify because the abuser is going to understand that they almost got caught, that they almost were going to get charged or put into some trouble. What's disheartening on this, and I want to salute all military out there that actually are good standing citizens. Unfortunately, and this is true, we have more and more and more citizens joining military ranks with ulterior motives, and this is facts. They join so they can learn the tactics. They join so they can learn strategy. They join so they can have superiority over other things in life and other sanctions in life. And worst of all, they join to cover up their narcissistic behavior, because everyone knows that military people are in most places highly honored. Plain and simple. I'm gonna be honest with you. There's a lot of gangbangers joining military ranking just because they want military training so they can use it. So, and I know for a fact, for many years, for over 20 years, I've been watching people they're not even legit citizens. And when I say legit citizens, I'm talking about they're not good, outstanding people. They're not. They're bad people in society, and they decide, I'm gonna go join the military, and they get in the military and they come back to their neighborhoods, back to their communities, only to terrorize people further, because that was their whole intent. This man is a perfect and prime example, because when the officers get on the scene and he starts toting, I'm in the military. So he's basically letting them know, you can't touch me because I'm above you. Well, no one is above the law. And when you're doing major crimes like that, especially inflicting harm, first of all, how are you a military personnel representation and you abusing your woman? Whether she's your wife, your girlfriend, whether she was some jump off that you met, you are being a horrible representation of military staff around the world, of law enforcement, of people who are in authoritative role. You're a bad representation, because now when people see military staff after seeing this video, they might look at every military person and wonder, I wonder if you're abusive. Wonder if you abuse your wife or abuse your husband or abuse your children. And he can't go claiming no PTSD because you wasn't in no war. You weren't in no war. Cut it out. And that's another thing. I know this is kind of a little off the topic, but a lot of times you get these military people, they join the military and then they automatically start running around claiming PTSD. They all of a sudden want to claim mental health problems. And I'm not saying that some of them don't endure extreme situations, but most of them are just lying. Most of them haven't even touched any war soil. Most of them haven't done no kind of war. They're lying to their family. They're lying to their friends. They're fabricating. They're taking pictures in different places and just trying to make it seem like, oh, I'm out here doing all of this really rough stuff. And then really they haven't even done anything. They're sitting somewhere behind a computer doing absolutely nothing, running around burning up their money at brothels or strip clubs or on mistresses and miss stores or whatever the male or female might have a problem or addiction with. And I'm being honest. I'm not trying to down talk, because there's a lot of military people that I know that are outstanding and they do phenomenal work in their communities, phenomenal works in their ranks, and they are good representation. But there gets people like this person right here, this individual right here, that as soon as the officers get on the scene, he starts cocking out his chest. I'm military. Yeah, I'm with this sanction, and I'm da-da-da. You heard me calling it out. Like, I'm looking and I'm just like, who cares if you in the military when you behave like that? Who gives a rat's ass? Who cares, right? If I had to sit back and learn that a military representation is in, not even if it weren't in private, if it was a private home that he was at, if I knew that, wait a minute, you took military training, you have military training, you have military skills, you're executing violence on your civilian spouse, something is wrong with you. You are a psychopath. That's what you are. That is a psychopathic abuser. And I'm going to be honest, they need to upgrade domestic charges, because do you see how he was just in the car? You got to watch the link. If you haven't watched the link, pause the video, whatever you need to do, watch the link, come back to it, whatever. But if you don't like spoilers, don't listen to my videos, because I am the spoiler queen. I'm just telling you how it is. He gets put into the police car and he's bragging. Oh, I'm going to get right out. I'm only going to get this. I'm only going to get that. They ain't going to do it. It ain't going to stick. And this is what I was talking about when I said a lot of abusers, they make sure that they know enough about those laws, so that way when they are apprehended, they can sound knowledgeable and they can weasel and manipulate their way out of it. But with him, he was under the influence of alcohol, possibly drugs, because his slur was on a million. His slur, when I first heard him, I was just like, is he slow, or like what's going on? Does he have some type of mental damage, like something, he hit his head a million times or something? Like, I'm trying to figure out what is the premise of how he's behaving. You know what I mean? And that was the premise of how he's behaving. I'm like, he's behaving like that because he doesn't have no other premise. 9 out of 10, he probably was prostituting his woman, talking about they thought she was a prostitute, but she's not. Abusers always tell on themselves when they're being apprehended. They will say that that's not what it was, but that's really what it was. And that's probably why she was so horrified, because it wasn't just him that she had to be afraid of. He had friends, he had accomplices. So now she's afraid of him, and she's afraid of his accomplices. And who's to know? Are his accomplices military as well? Who's to know, right? So now she's afraid. She is telling the officer, no, nothing happened. She's denying. And see, I also think that to some degree, like, first time it happens, if the officers they come out and they're trying to help a victim, and you're like, no. I think your first charge should be based on mandatory counseling. Something along those lines. But if it happens again and then it keeps happening again, and you're bringing these officers out, this is a dangerous situation, because abusers, if they're not afraid of getting in trouble, they become an extreme hazard to the officers as well. They do. No, they might not try what's being tried to the victim, but as you can see, they were being abusive. He and the women were being abusive. Lying is abuse. She's lying. No, nothing happened. Nothing at all. Nothing. Trust me, everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. And not only was not everything fine, but on top of everything else, there was no consideration to the fact that, do you think the officers want to keep coming here and checking on you? You think they want to keep coming here checking on you, and then you sitting around playing like nothing's wrong when something's clearly wrong, when something's clearly taking place that could endanger your life, that could endanger your, that's my phone holder for, So the second level, I think that some laws need to be enacted, is that if officers come out another time, or if after they have tried consistently to help a victim, and there's proof. Like in this case, there's proof. You have witnesses, you have staff witness, you have, I guess, resident witnesses or traveling witnesses, people who are there, and then you have actual footage. At that point, this woman needs to be charged criminally too, because she's saying, no, he's not abusing me, he wasn't abusing me. If the officer says, are you afraid for your life? Do you think that this person is or can hurt you now or in the future? And then this victim goes and says, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm fine. Just let him go. And they have that proof. She needs to be charged, because now you're an accessory to a crime. You are putting these officers' life in danger. They're coming out to help you. They're coming out to assist you. And then you are fabricating. And like I said, I understand that victims, they are going through a lot. They're going through a crap load of things. But when you actually have help, and this also reverts back to what I was saying in a prior video when I said, sometimes these victims are so afraid of their abusers that even with police standing there, even with them with their artillery, and they were greatly manned, they had enough people to handle him, she was still fearing for her life. And I think at one point, she said it, no, because when he gets out, he gonna beat me real bad. I thought I heard her saying that, but it's the truth. It's the truth. That's why he's like, oh, I don't care, because he already has his mind made up. When he gets out, she think that whoever called the police stopped him from what he was doing. No, he's going to come back. He's going to pick up, and he's going to be even more enraged, and it could kill her. She has a big old knot on her head. Now, they didn't show it. They bleeped her out for her privacy. Hopefully she's away from him. But unfortunately, you get a lot of military staff, they abuse their ranking. They abuse the fact that they have an honorable position in society, and they behave in a dishonorable fashion. And if he is or was, he needs to be discharged. And I don't even think that people need to even be able to call themselves military staff if they've been discharged under bad reasoning. They need to be completely revoked. Whatever you did, it doesn't count anymore. You can't even walk around saying you're part of the military at any point in your life. You are revoked completely. It shouldn't just be, we're going to discharge you and you're no longer to come back and serve. No, y'all need to start pulling them things from under. Whatever you did, it don't count, because now you're showing us who you really are. Because let me tell you something, there is no validation for that. There's no validation. And where he could have been loving this woman and treating her kindly and giving her the admiration that a husband gives to a wife, he's in there beating on her and attacking her and isolating her in her mind and physically to make her think that ain't nobody here to help you. Ain't nobody gonna stop me from what I'm gonna do to you. That is terrorism. That is fucking, pardon my language, that's fucking terrorism. That is not love. That is not care. That is not kindness. And because this person has military rank, it's supposed to make him superior to be able to get out and have lesser charge. No, if anything, you should get more charges, because you hold a higher rank in society to where you're supposed to have the kind of care and kindness that if you seen something crazy happening, you would interject and help someone. But meanwhile, you're being the problem. Meanwhile, this lady is fearing for her life. Clearly, you could see that she was, obviously in this for some time. She's obviously been in that situation for some time, and she's probably hidden way more abuse. A lot of people always say, "Oh, when an abuser gets called on for the first time, they'll be like, there's no history." But sometimes there's great history, but no one has been called because that person has mastered victimizing their victim. That's why neighbors, if you hear some yelling and some screaming, don't worry. You can call the cop, you can call the 911, and you can say, listen, I don't want to cause any problems. da 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 da, but I heard something and and I'm just nervous. I just don't want it to have been something when it's not. Boom. And people should be able to do that. They should be able to do that without repercussion. They should be able to say, like, I'm sorry, but I was walking up the street and I saw someone doing something and it kind of looked on the domestic abusive side, or it looked like this person was being attacked. Because at the end of the day, human beings, everybody is just like, I'm just going to mind my business. I'm not going to get involved. And it's just like, if you frequent the community or live in that community, you have the right to protect the community just the same as police officers. Don't you heard of citizens arrest? So if as citizens in the United States, we can do citizens arrest, then as citizens of the United States, we can also intervene appropriately and accordingly to minimize these things taking place and assist by speaking out. If speaking out is just catching a video and sending the video in, do it. If it is stepping away as quickly as you can or as privately as you can and calling and saying, listen, I don't know what's going on, but there's a situation taking place. X, Y, and Z is going on. This situation was terrible. Like, I was so disgusted, and I knew it was going to unfold like that. I knew he was going to get in the car and damage things. I knew he was going to keep talking cocky to the officers, out of place. I'm like, I don't care what your title is. When it comes to not caring for another human life, all of that stuff goes out the window. Like, I don't consider that guy an honorable representation of military. Yeah, it's like 94 degrees in here today. It's 94 degrees. All week, 94. All week. Look. All week. That was my very first time seeing the machine. I don't even know if that's the machine or if that's just the thermometer, but if it is the machine, I'm about to go press it because I'm not about to sit in here and suffer. My back is just sweating. My face is sweating. I'm about to just press the button. But, anyway, so this particular situation in general is out of control. It's out of control. And he does, like I said, he has no care. He has no care in the world whatsoever. He has no care in the world for the woman that he has caused this domestic violence, this abuse on. All he did was attack her and lie about attacking her. And so she was very afraid, and she expressed that. And like I said, in these situations where you have, hold up, I got my wet cloth. Got my wet cloth. I got my wet cloth to keep me cool. I don't want to get heat sickness. That's mostly what I'm concerned about. I don't care that it's hot. I actually like hot weather, but because of my medical condition, my body does not know how extremely hot it really is in here. And so I'm just doing what I can. My chest do feel tight though. Anyway, I'm not afraid to die. Life is a vapor. But like I said, this particular video, oh my gosh, it drove me insane watching it. I was just like, ooh, because I was just like, I already knew he was gonna lie. I could tell he was lying by his posture. I could tell he was lying by the way his eyes were moving, and I could tell he was lying by him questioning the officers, because usually when a person is lying, they question because they're trying to dance around whatever you're saying to fix it to, like I said, he's a master manipulator, and that's what manipulators do. When manipulators have done something wrong or are intending to do more wrong or do something wrong, that's how they operate. There's a lot of questions involved. There's a lot of twisting and and maneuvering. Now, if there was no video going, and she kept saying, no, nothing happened, even with a big old knot on her head, and even with there being witnesses, you know, it might have made it a little challenging for the officers to apprehend this abuser in such of a way to get him, at least get some kind of record of what he's doing. See, a lot of the times, yes, those abusers, they get right back out. They get right back out because it's not much that can be done. If a victim has like small things happening to them, the judge isn't really going to do too much. The jails are crowded, you know what I mean? There's not too much they could do. Give them a court date, let them go, whatever. Let them give them a bond, get some money off of it. But the abuser will get out, and then the abuser will not even start from square one. The abuser will start from where they left off, and they intensify it. They gotta catch up for missed time. So now the victim is now going to face more abuse and at a higher intensified rate, simply because that person that is abusing has this thought that was your fault that the police got called in. That was your fault that the abuser got put in jail. That's how their mentality becomes. And the reason I know is because I've seen so much of it. And like I said, you just have to understand that that's the way their mind functions. They don't think they're doing nothing wrong, even though they know it's not a good thing to do. They don't think they're doing nothing wrong. They think that they are creating the perfect world for themselves. And that's what abusers do. In their mind, they're creating the perfect world for themselves. A world where they have someone who bows down to them, abides and is obedient to everything that they say, even if it is derogatory. And then a lot of the times, these abusers try to criminalize the victim. They try to get the victim involved in the things that they're doing, whether the victim knows it or not. Because a lot of the time, the victim doesn't have a clue of what's going on. They're just going along because at this time they're being abused, and they're just like, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this in one piece. That's how they feel. They want to get away from their abuser. They want to get away from the nonsense, but they don't know how. Now, with this lady, I'm imagining, because he's military, I'm imagining that she relies on him probably 100%. She probably is not allowed to work, so she probably doesn't have a job. She probably is not allowed to work. And if she does work, he probably interferes with that a lot, somehow, some way. And she probably waits for him to come home, and when he comes home, if he's ever stationed away, she probably waits for him to come home just so that way she can, be happy that he's there, and then it turns back into this big old mess. So unfortunately, I think that is most likely what's taking place with this situation, is that more than likely she's relying upon him, because when you get those victims that they absolutely don't want the police to stop it, even though deep inside they do want it stopped. They want it stopped because they don't want to be abused, but they don't want it to stop because they know this person's going to get out. This person's going to come back and do more than what they were doing before. They think that. And the reason that they think that is because they're reliant upon it. They need a roof over their head by this person. They need food upon their belly. They need clothes upon their back. They need this. They need that. They rely on this person for everything. And then usually those abusers, they be giving good sex to these people. These people be not wanting to leave because of the sex alone. And I'm gonna tell you, ask many of victims about their sexual interaction with their abuser, and many of them will highlight, but the sex was good. They didn't want to leave because of the sex, or they will claim they just didn't want to get a new partner and stuff like that. But really, it's no, that makeup sex, the abuse, and then when the abuser comes back and is like, whether it's a man or woman, I'm not using any gender voice. I'm just using the terminology and the status quo of what they usually do. I love you. Come on, let's put all of that behind us type stuff. And really, no, 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 no. Really, they just revamped their plan and said, all right, so that didn't work. Now what I got to do this time is blah 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 blah. And what they do is more and more they try to segregate the victim more and more from family, segregate the victim more and more from friends, work. If they find out if the victim is working, they will try to ruin that person's work by either spending up their money, constantly asking for money, constantly demanding money, taking their money, managing their money, swindling their money, whatever they can do, gambling their money, whatever their addictions are, making them feel like you gotta be my quote unquote ride or die. They will play that trip on them, like, oh, you gotta have my back when I'm down, so I can have your back when you down. And then guess what? That abuser will get that victim down and out financially and in any way possible, and then abandon them and leave them in the worst situations, and then come back and check when they know that victim is building themselves back up, because they can't have that. They don't like that. And so if this woman by chance happens to have had a job or happened to have been working at this time, she probably was more afraid of having to have a stalker in him, having to have him come out and have to deal with him stalking her, following her around, trying to figure out where she's at, what she's doing, who she's with, whether she has someone new, where she's living now. And that alone creates a new level of trauma for a victim, because now they're basically still in that abusive relationship, because obviously that person has not detached from them. And see, when a victim is still even slightly attached, so to say, they never really get a chance to fairly heal, because they're still constantly dealing with the reminder of this person's presence or possible inclination to get back in their life. And they know it, like, oh God, this person might come back around and now I got to deal with them and stuff like that. So this situation, another steamer. It was crazy. It's like this guy, he kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked and broke out the window. You can tell he's a highly violent person. You can tell he's a highly violent person because he was very cocky towards the officer staff, and he didn't care. He didn't care that that they were there to just kind of clear the situation up. His whole thought was, you're getting in the way of me whooping on this woman, and I ain't got time for y'all. That was his whole message. I ain't got time for y'all. I need y'all to get out of here so I could keep beating on this woman. Can y'all get the from out of here? That was really his message to them. Again, if you're watching and you are an abuser, you can get help. There is help out there for you, but you have to want to get help, and you have to stop yourself from being that way. No one can help you. It's just like addiction. It's just like, any other bad habit that people pick up or form in their life. It can stop, but you have to be the one to want it to stop, and you have to be the one willing to take the proper steps to stop. If you don't want to stop and you want to keep flying off the handle and putting your hands on people or threatening people and basically being an abuser by choice, you won't heal. And the same thing with victims. If you want to keep covering up the tracks of your abuser and keep saying, no, the abuser's not abusing me, that's not what it is, no, it's not love. Someone hitting on you and being rude to you and talking down to you and messing your life up is not love at all. It's not love. So you're just addicted to the thought of who this person could be, but you're not being loved, and you don't really love that person. You just love what you think this person is capable of being. You have to learn how to separate the two. And it's hard to do when you're dealing with a manipulator or a narcissistic abuser, because they will play both sides of the fence, which is what is known popular in domestic violence as the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where in public or around other people, this person is like perfect person. You would never think that. But then with you and behind closed doors, they are a whole monster. And so that way, when you do speak about it, people are going to look at you like, whatever, you're lying, and they're not going to believe you, which makes it harder for you to prove your case to other people, because they've never seen that side of your abuser. They've never seen your abuser in an abusive mode, and they don't see that in their characteristics. So sometimes you have to be mindful that these abusers, they are professional. They do this for a living. They have learned how to manipulate. They have made up their minds about what they are willing to go through. They have made up their minds about everything. Like, seriously, they know that the police are going to come and intervene at some point in time. They have their mind made up about that as well. They have their mind made up like, if this, that, and the third happens, this is what I'm going to do. Because that is the mental of a manipulator. They're always trying to think ahead, because they have to think ahead. They have to be prepared for when something happens, which is why if you're dealing with a manipulator, you got to be many steps ahead of the manipulator. And you don't owe a manipulator the truth. You don't owe the manipulator the truth. So that's your biggest tip. If you're dealing with a manipulator, you don't owe them the truth. You don't owe them an explanation. You owe them the understanding that you don't want to be part of their manipulation. Good luck. Click on that video link if you didn't watch that video. Shout out to all of y'all. Like I said, I have so much respect for people that work in these industries that have to deal with this on a constant basis. That I have so much respect for y'all, because it's such a rough industry, because a lot of abusers, they really tend to show that they're good people. So it's so hard when you finally are around one and you're like, wait, you're an abuser? Like, you? And it really messes up people's psyches on it. And it's bound to happen, you know. I was checking on my fish because it's hot in here. So I put the fan by my fish so my fish doesn't get cooked in there, because it got to be at least 100 degrees in here. So the water's probably super warm for my fish. So I put the fan off of me and onto my fish so my fish can get some air. But again, if you send me any more videos, whether it's this kind or another kind, and if I, get to see it, I will interject. I will talk a little bit about it. Just because it's the same as a reaction video, And like I said, I knew that was going to pan out like that. I knew that was going to fly off the handle, because that is just the demeanor that this person presented. He presented fly off the handle type behavior, like from the get-go, disrespecting the officers, trying to act all Swayze cool, leaning back on the counter like, this is a piece of cake. Watch how I get out of this. When really it's like, no. And I admire how the officers, how they gave him considerable respect when he mentioned being in the military, when they were just like, oh, okay, they were, it was like, oh, all right. The demeanor did change a tad bit, and you could hear it in their voice and everything. But when they realized, wait, no, this guy is really such an a-hole, like he's like really majorly being a butt wipe, they had to resort back to, listen, we don't care if you're in the military or not. At this point, you need to be properly charged. You are out of control in society. And like I said, I am one of those people where, like, I will go onto change.org and write a petition about this. Like, if I need to, they need to start heightening the laws in domestic violence for victims and also for perpetrators of abuse. simply because people they're so comfortable with the general laws that they're like, it's a piece of cake. Well, it needs to stop being a piece of cake. It needs to stop being a piece of cake. Victims need to start being held accountable for fabricating, especially once law enforcement gets on the scene and they're there to help. Like I said, first time, it's understandable if it could be their very first time having officers on the scene. They may be in total disarray. So it's okay if the first time they might say, well, no, nothing's going on, da 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 da, because you have to consider the emotional mental of the victim as well. But once you got evidence of it, or you have to come back more than one time, and that victim's still saying, no, 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 nothing, 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 then you got to start wondering, like, do we need to charge you for crime? Because at this point, you're not making me a believer at all. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe it. And so, for me, I do feel empathy and compassion for, the victim in this video, because I seen it in her body movement. Even though they bleeped out her face or whatever, so you couldn't see, I could tell by her body language. I could hear in her voice, the octaves in her voice. I could hear by what she was saying that she was horrified of this abuser in her life, and that she was determined to just listen. You guys, if y'all just leave, it's okay. Even though she knew either way he was going to beat on her. He was going to beat on her if they left him there, and she knew he was going to come out and beat on her. So either way. But see, when the officers come, you have to be willing to let go. To y'all victims out there, you gotta be willing to let go. When they come and they're able to apprehend your abuser, you gotta be willing to let go. You gotta be willing to leave that environment right then and right there, and take the help that is available to you to help you sustain your life, if that's what you really want to do. Get out of that. And yeah, you may have those days and those times and those moments where you miss your abuser, and where you are fantasizing about how, you might be remembering the times when your abuser was being nice to you and did nice things for you, but those things are done just to keep you entrapped. It's not being done out of pure love. It's being done to further bind you to the abuse, so that way when it is time for you to go, you can't go, because you keep thinking back like, but they did this for me, and they do guilt tripping. They'll tell you, oh, if you leave me hanging like this, that's messed up. They will do that. They will do those things because they don't want you free. They don't want you free of their abuse. So please take the steps. Please don't keep putting these officers' lives in danger. If you know good and well you just gonna keep dealing with the person, you're gonna keep dealing with the person. Unfortunately, you may end up being a homicide case where the abuser gets out of control and abuse you so badly, that they have to come and send in homicide detectives, because now it went too far. And don't put yourself in that position. Get away from your abuser. Your abuser's threatening you, telling you to get weapons, or telling or trying to invoke you to be someone that you're not, trying to make you the violent one, trying to make you the one who's always arguing and yelling and getting in their face. Get out of that situation, because they are trying to set it up to where you look like the aggressor. And if your neighbors hear your spouse or your abuser constantly yelling at you, constantly disrespecting you, but then they hear you rattling back off, they're not going to know who's the abuser. They're just going to be like, they always in there arguing. And then what happens is, they will become accustomed to it. It doesn't mean they agree to it. It doesn't mean that they're okay with it. They may just become accustomed to it, where they're just like, I ain't really trying to get into it, because they seem to argue and then be back friends again. So, but it could be something way worse brewing. And again, lots of times abusers, they do enlist other people to get involved, to help them with the abuse and to help them with the attacks made on the victims. So it's not a good idea to stay, because you might think you're battling just your abuser, as a victim, but you will come to realize that you got a whole plethora of people that's trying to get at you on their behalf, because an abuser may not be letting them know that they truly are the abuser that they are. So be careful out there and find your safe word or your safe place and leave that type of people alone. Tell them bye. Check out the link in the video if you want to check it out and see that video. That was a good one that y'all shared. That was a really good one that y'all shared, because oh my gosh, that was a topic that definitely needed to be addressed. You know, people who have ranking, people who are supposed to be looked upon in society as like great people, they also need to understand that you can't abuse your ranking and your titles and stuff like that just because you went through military training. You can't go around, I got guns and all of that stuff, because that's what they do. They got guns and they know these people and da 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 da. And it's like, you can't turn into a monster just because, you know, just because you're in the military. You're supposed to be who people call on when they need help, not the person that people want to run away from when you come around. People want to avoid you. You know what I mean? I'm like, at this point, I'm pretty sure she wants to avoid him. I'm pretty sure she does. So check out the video. It's really great. God bless. Be safe. No stress. God bless. Oh, fuck the rest. I'm is out.